Us youth employees at Rooted have been working very hard to bring aquaponics to our community. We applied for a grant of $3,000 in December 2023, and we received it in April 2024. With the money, we built our own tank in our year-round greenhouse. Our hope is to bring food to our neighbors when we aren't able to grow plants in our garden.
So very basically, aquaponics is growing fish and vegetables together in a system so that they can help each other out. So the fish poop in the water, and the fish poop water is pumped up through a bed of plants. That fish poop is excellent fertilizer for your plants, so it will help them grow. Plants absorb those nutrients and grow from that fish poop, and then they filter the water too. So filtered water is sent out back to the fish. What you get in a aquaponic system is basically you get protein from your fish, and you get all that goodness from your vegetables as well. It's a system that supports itself. You can do it inside in the wintertime, so it's a way to grow both your protein and your vegetables.
As we expand our learning into our workplace, there are a couple things we want to accomplish, one of them being how to learn and grow in a sustainable closed system. Our aquaponics tank will not only feed our community, but also nourish the minds of it. Along with our growing knowledge as youth workers, we hope to bring education to the younger youths on aquaponics, how it works, and benefits of a system like this, so maybe one day they too will participate in building their community.
So I'm here to explain more of the components now that we've kind of set it up a bit. Up here, we have the light that we're going to use when, like, for example, we're in the greenhouse during the winter and there's not a lot of sunlight, and so this kind of replicates the sunlight for the plants to be able to grow when it's dark. This is the grow bed where the plants will grow. This is the grow media where the plants are going to grow. This is specifically clay base, where the nutrients that get absorbed from where they absorb the nutrients from the water, but retain it outside, like an outer shell, so that the roots can feed off of it easier when they're growing up here. And down here is the fish tank. This is where the fish are gonna be when we fully install it. And the pump is right here, these two. And the way it works is it sucks up water all the way through this tube here, and it sinks or floods this entire bed, so all the nutrients get stuck onto the pellets, and then they get drained. The water gets drained down, like as if a filter, where it keeps the nutrients up here, but the plain water goes back down. Over here is a timer to regulate how often the pump goes on and off. So here's the timer to regulate how often the pump goes on and off with flooding the bed. You could set it to however long you want it to run. And more down here, we have air stones, I believe, where they hold oxygen and provide oxygen for the water tank, because fish need oxygen to live as well. And here we have and I believe this machine pumps water back into the stones so that they can be and I believe this machine pumps air into the stones so that they could be reused when oxygen runs low. And I believe that is all. Or we have temperature, what is this called? A thermometer.
Mm-hmm.
We have a thermometer to monitor the temperature of the fish tank to make sure they're not too cold. And if they are, we have a heater. A heater for the water so that the fish. We have a heater for the water so the fish can be safe in a warm environment. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
My first experience with aquaponics, being introduced to it, was in Milwaukee with Growing Power. They had a nice facility there. And I guess what I gleaned from that is aquaponics is a good way for urban farmers to utilize a small amount of space to grow both a protein and a vegetable or fruit source in the same location. So over there, they were growing a lot of perch, some tilapia within their aquaponics system. And the idea is that in an urban setting, this would provide a convenient means to get some protein on the dinner plate, along with your fresh vegetables as well. So when I was hired here at Rooted, I actually started working at Grow Academy. Grow Academy has youth there that are incarcerated, but we are able to provide some educational programming as well. So we had a couple different aquaponics setups there, that basically a flood system and a flow system. We don't necessarily eat the fish that we grow there. We have some pretty big goldfish, some bullhead, a few sunfish, bluegill as well. So basically it's just a big tank, pumps the water up into a bigger tank up top that floods some Clayton, some clay pebbles basically hold the nutrients and the bacteria. So my understanding is basically the waste in the water comes up into this growing medium, bacteria and other things convert it into a form that plants can use. So in my experience, it's been interesting. It's a little more difficult because you're dealing with living creatures, so you have to be careful. In a hydroponic system, which would be its equivalent, you can use chemicals and other things to moderate, the chemistry of the water to make it more appropriate for the plants to grow. But however, because we have fish involved, it's more dependent on letting the system get going and let it adjust naturally to the environment that it has. So it's its own little ecosystem, which is a little more difficult to deal with. A lot of places will grow things like bok choy, a little bit of lettuce, some things like that. Watercress is always a really good one in an aquaponics system. Unfortunately, not everyone likes watercress, nor is that amount of watercress needed. But yeah, down at Grow Academy, we grow a lot of bok choy. Sometimes we've had good luck with strawberries, depending on the system. But a lot of mint. Mint is a really good one to grow that we utilize a lot for just things in-house as far as like teas and things like that. But in general, aquaponics is kind of it takes a little bit to learn. You have to get the pH right, which is what allows the plants to grow. So if you don't have the right pH, then your plants aren't going to grow well. You're going to have some issues.
So let's say perhaps the fish died, then what would be the next steps?
Yeah, usually it's one thing if the fish die like right away, that they hadn't had enough nutrients getting into the water, enough fish poo to get into the water. But if they die later on, like fish do die, they get issues, they get fungus sometimes in that kind of setting. But it's okay. It's okay. Usually, if you've had 4 or 5 weeks of them being in there, it should have enough nutrients built up in the system that it will keep going for another 4 weeks. So that gives you some time to go get some more fish and get them in there. So yeah, I think just monitoring things, making sure that you have the right type of fish in there. Like our bullheads like to eat our goldfish. So now it's like only the toughest of the toughest goldfish have survived. But yeah, just make sure that you have the right fish and you're keeping an eye on them. Usually the biggest problem is heat related. If the tank gets too hot and the water gets too hot, that's what's going to kill your fish. As long as it's cold and you're providing lots of oxygen to the water, your fish should be okay.
Why would we need a grow light for our aquaponic system, and what would that help with?
Yeah, so I think the main advantage of having a light, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're having this outside in the greenhouse. So technically you probably could grow things just with the natural light, but because we're this far north in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, it's harder to get enough light to grow most plants during this time of year. So adding a grow light and also a timer will allow you to control how many hours of daylight a plant gets. So a lot of plants need probably 12 or more hours of daylight in order to grow correctly. So this time of year, when the sun's really not out that long during the daytime, we have to supplement it with a grow light, and that's the reason why we have it in your system.
Are there pros and cons? And if so, what are the pros and what are the cons?
Yeah, I think the main advantage of aquaponics is especially like in an urban setting in a city where we don't have a lot of room or you don't have a clean river to go get fish from. And so the idea is really the big benefit of aquaponics over like hydroponics or something like that is that this is a protein source that you couldn't get otherwise. So it's a meat source that you can't get otherwise maybe in the middle of a city. So we don't have the ability to have a bunch of cows around or pigs, whatever you want to eat. In this way, in a small amount of area, like you can grow a lot of fish. So tilapia can grow pretty quick. I think in a matter of 6 months, they grow up to a pound or something like that. So a pound of fish is a good amount of, food for a family if you're cycling through that. So that's one benefit, is the protein behind it. And then the bonus is kind of the greens that purify the water, and you're able to eat some of those greens, in addition to the fish. The drawback is it is kind of tricky to get used to using it because you can't add a lot of outside things like chemicals, so to speak, to help with the system, because you have fish, you have other living organisms in there. It makes it a little more difficult. So you have to make sure that the ecosystem is healthy within that aquaponic system so that everything grows right. So the con would be it is a little steep learning curve to figure out what grows well in your system. But the benefit is it can be really good for a community to have a protein source in the middle of a city.
As of our end goal, we hope to not just stop at a small aquaponics tank. Our vision is to grow on this project and expand our resources to a sustainable, local, healthy, and renewable food source.
So with the aquaponics system, we hope to be able to still provide fresh food for the community during the inactive season of our garden, being during the winter. And also as an education, part of the education for the youth and the community in general, to be able to learn what an aquaponic system is and the benefits of it, as a engaging opportunity for the children in the community, and also as a learning opportunity for us to be able to learn how to work a sustainable system indoors. With the fish poop being nutrient for the plants, that gets pumped through the bed of plants and filters the water that goes back down to the fish, which in some cases you could also eat the fish as protein, so you get the protein and the vegetables all in one system.
So our idea with this project is to start small with this little system that we're building so that we can learn how to operate it, do any kind of troubleshooting, figure out how to monitor things like the pH of the water, the nutrients for the plants, make sure we know how to raise the fish in a way that is healthy and keeps them thriving. So our little system that we're building with this grant is a learning system. And the hope is that eventually we can scale up into these big in-the-ground tanks that we have in our greenhouse. They are huge. So we really want to make sure before we get those tanks filled with water and filled with fish that we know what we're doing, and also that we have a plan for what to do with all those fish and all those plants if we are able to be successful with that big system.